we still faithful. I'ma put it all on the table. We forever faithful. Yeah, we still faithful.
What's up, 49er faithful? I'm JD. This is Keeping the Faith. It is Monday, March the 2nd, 2026, which means we are just 1 week out from the start of the NFL's legal tampering period, which begins next Monday, March the 9th, when NFL teams can begin negotiating with upcoming free agents. And over the next week or so, we will dive heavy into free agency here on this channel. But today, what I want to do is react to some news that came out of the NFL's scouting combine in Indianapolis, courtesy of ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Now, he had some interesting things to say about the San Francisco 49ers on Sunday, saying that the Niners are sneaky contenders for some of the good free agents that will be available starting next week. The first that he mentioned, Jeremy Fowler, the first that Jeremy Fowler mentioned is a player on the defensive line. And we all know that the 49ers desperately need some help on the defensive line, both at edge and on the interior. And this free agent that Jeremy Fowler is linking to the San Francisco 49ers is a disruptive interior rusher in Denver Broncos free agent, Jonathan Franklin Myers. He is a name to watch with the San Francisco 49ers when free agency starts next week. He is 29 years old, however, turns 30 in September, but he has been a very, very productive player for the Denver Broncos the past 2 seasons, racking up 14 and a half sacks as an interior rusher. And we know that that would help the 49ers in a big way because the Achilles heel of the entire football team last year was their pass rush. And so to me, yes, it sounds good on paper, getting a guy like a Jonathan Franklin Myers, who definitely would fit the scheme. I mean, he's played for the Rams and the Jets previously, who ran similar systems to what the 49ers run. He would, fit like a glove with the 49ers defense, assuming that 49ers new defensive coordinator Raheem Morris doesn't change too many things. But we all know he will definitely add in his own wrinkles. A lot of talk about the Niners incorporating way more 5-man fronts this year. But Jonathan Franklin Myers, being 30 years old, it kind of scares me off a little bit. Kind of gives me some Javon Hargrave kind of vibes in free agency. Now, I know it's not an apples to apples comparison. Javon Hargrave wasn't, almost 30 when the Niners signed him, and he definitely wasn't a good scheme fit for the wide nine. In hindsight, the Niners whiffed on that one badly. But what I mean is that I don't want to overpay for an interior defensive lineman, specifically one who is, nearing 30 years old in free agency. I don't know how I feel about the Niners being linked to a guy like a Jonathan Franklin Myers. I mean, of course, it always comes down to the money. So, if they were to sign him, I would want to wait and see what the financials were before I gave a definitive opinion on it. But just for me, I don't want to see the Niners overspend in free agency on a guy who's coming up on 30. I don't know. That was the first thing that popped out to me when I read Jeremy Fowler's report. Now, in addition to Jonathan Franklin Myers, Jeremy Fowler did also mention that the 49ers are being linked to 2 free agent wide receivers. And let's talk about those. The first one being 26-year-old Minnesota Vikings free agent wide receiver Jalen Nailor. Scratch that. 27-year-old Jalen Nailor, because today is actually Jalen Nailor's 27th birthday, and he is a name to watch with the 49ers in 2026 free agency, according to Jeremy Fowler. He's 5'11", 190 pounds, was drafted in the 6th round of the 2022 NFL draft to the Minnesota Vikings. In 2025, he racked up 29 receptions for 444 yards and 4 touchdowns. He does have 10 touchdowns combined over the past 2 seasons. Decent production for a guy who played third fiddle to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison during his time in Minnesota. And he's a guy who has the nickname Speedy because coming out of college, he ran a 4.5, but his playing speed is much faster, and that earned him the name Speedy by his teammates. But When I think of Jalen Naylor potentially coming to the San Francisco 49ers, I mean, would he benefit from playing with the 49ers in what figures to be a wide open wide receiver competition in San Francisco this year? Absolutely. I mean, he's not going to have a Justin Jefferson or a Jordan Addison ahead of him, and he would definitely, have a bump in targets, a bump in production, and would be able to showcase more of his skills than he did in Minnesota. However, you bring in a guy like a Jalen Naylor, who, yes, is an explosive player. He's a talented guy. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like it would kind of be similar to what the Niners did last year. You have a number three wide receiver who basically would be a fringe number two. And again, he's going to be a free agent. So you're going to have to overpay a little bit for a guy like that. And I don't want the Niners to overpay for another number three fledgling number two wide receiver type. I'm out on that. I'm not in on a guy like a Jalen Naylor unless the money is absolutely just unless it's a deal you cannot pass up if you're the 49ers. If it's chump change, if it's cheap, sure, bring him in. But he's a 27-year-old wide receiver who has flashed a ton of potential, and I could see another team potentially outbidding the 49ers for a guy like Naylor. And if I'm the 49ers, I let that happen. That's fine with me. The Niners don't need another number three wide receiver moonlighting as a number two and you're overpaying it. They need to get out of that mindset. They need to get difference makers at wide receiver. And would Naylor be an upgrade over some of the guys that they had in 2025? Yeah, but I'm out on that. I'm out on Jalen Naylor coming to the 49ers in free agency. The other name, however, that Jeremy Fowler noted to the 49ers potentially in when free agency opens up next week, this one is intriguing. The Niners are considered a sleeper for Packers free agent wide receiver Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs is 25 years old. He turns 26 in April. He's 6'2", 204 pounds. Ran a 4.5 coming out of college when the Packers drafted him in the fourth round of the 2022 NFL draft. He's been a moderately productive wide receiver in an offense that doesn't really feature one wide receiver over another week in, week out. But he has put up some very solid numbers in spots when he is targeted, when he is featured in the offense. Romeo Doubs has been a very productive guy. In 2025, he had 55 receptions for a career high 724 yards and 6 touchdowns. And what I like about Romeo Doubs is that he's a guy who can run every single route in the route tree. He can run the short stuff, the intermediate stuff. He's a sneaky deep threat as well. And what really stands out to me about Romeo Doubs is he has a knack for making himself available to the quarterback. When he's running those slants, he has a way of just sealing off the defender and getting open. When he's running those intermediates, he catches it in stride with strong hands and keeps going. He's pretty physical, over the intermediate areas of the field. Outside the numbers, he's very, very well adept at coming back to the football, making himself available, creating separation when there is none. And he would come in and give Brock Purdy that possession wide receiver that the team is going to desperately need with the pending departure of Juwan Jennings, with free agency right around the corner. I would be all about Romeo Doubs coming to San Francisco, assuming the money isn't crazy. He is a guy coming into his prime. He figures to command some pretty good money on the free agent market. But if the Niners can get him at a fair price, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I like Romeo Doubs. He's a very skilled possession wide receiver, and the 49ers need guys that can move the chains, pick up first downs, score in the red zone, do the things that Romeo Doubs has shown he can do in Green Bay. And he was not necessarily featured week in, week out with the Packers because they had other targets in their offense, guys like Christian Watson. It was hard for any one wide receiver to really stand out for long stretches of time in Green Bay, just based on how they run their offense. But Romeo Doubs, to me, is an intriguing prospect for the 49ers in free agency as long as the money doesn't get too crazy. And if you bring in a guy like a Romeo Dobbs, this is another area that interests me. If they were to bring in, the former Packers wide receiver, if they sign a guy like Romeo Dobbs, it frees them up in the NFL draft to attack the trenches. You knocked out one of your biggest needs on the team, that being wide receiver. Romeo Dobbs would come in, and I'm not going to say he would be your de facto number one, but you'd have Ricky Pearsall, if he's able to stay healthy, battling with Romeo Dobbs to see, who's the guy, who's going to be Brock Purdy's go-to guy. And it would allow the Niners to attack the trenches early in the upcoming NFL draft, whether that be offensive line or defensive line. I think that would be a smart way for the 49ers to allocate their funds in free agency, is to go out there and potentially acquire a proven veteran wide receiver. This team already has a lot of young guys on it. They have some speedsters in Jacob Cowing and Jordan Watkins, who they will be relying on to provide that boost of energy and that ability to stretch the field in this offense this year. And Ricky Pearsall himself is a guy who doesn't have a ton of experience. I mean, he's played 2 years in the NFL. He's going into his third season, but he's really barely played due to injuries and whatnot over the course of his first 2 years in the red and gold. So if I'm the 49ers, I don't know that I necessarily want to go wide receiver early in the upcoming draft when you already have a ton of young guys on this roster as is. I want to go out, if I'm the 49ers, and go get a proven veteran wide receiver who can help you right now. We all know about Kyle Shanahan's offense and how rookie wide receivers tend to struggle early on. Brandon Ayuk was in Kyle Shanahan's doghouse early in his career. It takes guys sometimes a little bit to get going. So if you bring in a veteran, especially a guy like Dobbs who knows the offense, it would help the 49ers immediately, and it would free them up to, spread the wealth in the NFL draft to other areas of need on the team. And so I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Would you be interested in a Romeo Dobbs signing when free agency starts next week? Let me know, faithful. I'm excited. I cannot wait for the start of free agency. Drop your comments down below, and of course, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications on, because we're going to be dropping a ton of 49ers free agency content this week, leading up to the start of the legal tampering period next Monday. So as always, let's go Niners. Keep it locked right here, and things are about to get crazy.